Alright, after about let's say week's hiatus, recorded Challenge Series episodes are finally set to return, and we are here for E tier, which has managed to diversify itself from just being GT3. One of the reasons that Challenge Series has taken so long to continue, I took time out of a very long night where I couldn't fall asleep and just wrote down and recorded lap times of various cars to compare them in a way that allowed me to put them all into tiers so that we don't have any more confusion as to what car belongs where anymore. There obviously still be cars overrunning into other tiers they don't belong in. GT40 being a multi-tier car will always be a thing. Same thing with cars from this tier, E tier, probably still being an S, especially things like a C7R or a Huracan GT3. Just that now I know exactly what other alternatives there are. Other various seasons or series, or not series, but like various championships are planned besides the basic 6 tiers as well for the Challenge Series. There's going to be, tiers A, B, C, D, E, and S. And then there's going to be Challenge Series Arcade Mode. Quick 6-race, 2-episode championships, which have a greater variety of vehicles, and look to kind of extend the outreach of characters, because the spreadsheet of Challenge Series characters is up to like 55 now, but there's only been like 30 that have shown up in an actual race in the Challenge Series. So the arcade mode will attempt to reach out to some of those other characters who haven't appeared yet. And they'll also sort of serve as a bit of a testing ground to make sure that, because I only tested one track, I only tested Barcelona for these lap times, so a car could be really good at Monza or really good at Laguna Seca somehow, and I wouldn't know because I only tested at one track. So the arcade mode should also help me to make sure that when I put such an intense variety of vehicles in the same race, that it won't look absolutely stupid when we have one car running away by 20 seconds every race. But for now, we have E tier. Oh yeah, the other thing we have, it's always been mentioned offhand that the Challenge Series has recruiting drivers. Gina Turini, myself, and Hitori Kawashiro being those recruiting drivers, all three of which are in this championship, as you can see. The idea being that Gina handles Europe, Hitori generally handles Japan, and I would handle North America. Well, Asia, not just Japan, but it's mostly Japan because that is where most of the racing is in Asia. There's some in China, there's a tiny bit in Korea, but there's not much else anywhere else. Unless you're going to try and tell me that Nepal and Tibet have their own racing series, or I suppose India has it somewhere, but it doesn't have much outreach. So it's not going to really be discovered nearly as easily as something in Japan, where there's pretty much always racing going on. In Europe, where there's always racing, literally always racing happening. Because every manufacturer in Europe is obsessed with racing. And in America, where there's a relatively decent amount of racing, but most of the racing is provided by European companies. Obviously, there's your Corvettes and Fords and such. Obviously, the occasional Japanese car will race, like Hondas and Toyotas, Mazdas. But usually, you look at a lineup for like IMSA, it's a lot of Mercedes, and GT3 racing is mostly European, let's be fair. But anyway, Divisional Prospect Series. In between seasons will be 3 championships, each focusing on a different region, and focusing based around a different tier of cars. And the top two rookie drivers in that appropriate championship, I believe they'd be 9 or 10 races apiece. They end up becoming incorporated into the Challenge Series. They end up earning their spot on the roster. Where they would have their own set cars and so on and so forth. So, just going to get into Mugello, and we'll just kind of look at the starting grid from there before I continue talking any more than I have to. Alright, so you can look here on the starting grid and see just what vehicles we're working with here. Eric Wojciechowski in his 488. I've entered the grid in a Pagani Huayra BC, which basically just means like a crazy version of it. Thrasher has entered in an SLS AMG. Hikari Taniguchi in a Nissan GTR GT3. Nitori and Lene are both going to Lamborghinis. Cam driving an R8 GT3. Yoshiro Casquette makes their return, finally, and they drive an MC12 GT1. A vehicle that I think was actually previously in S tier in its first appearance in the Challenge Series, but I've since deduced, due to all of that testing, that in reality, it's not actually that much faster. Sometimes, on some tracks, it's actually slower than the average GT3 car. Which is funny, because the Porsche GT1 is not. It is nowhere near this correct pace. Taylor Lynn, also in a Huracan. Tyler McIntosh, a driver who's been on the Challenge Series list since its inception, but considering the fact that he is a Dodge Charger guy, so of course has a stunning lack of any of that. So here we are. He's instead decided to go with a McLaren 650S for this championship. Surprisingly, does not go with a Corvette. Speaking of Corvette, we have the singular representative of the Corvettes in Riley Blanchard. Gino Torini representing with a Nissan GTR. We have Travis Wilde, who is racing the Porsche 935. An old Group 5? I think it's Group 5 race car. Silhouette racer, anyway. Gotta love that they actually mentioned the nickname Moby Dick there, because of how big it is. Makola Katsumi in the BMW Z4, and finally, Hyde Kito. He might have my number, but he does not have the starting grid numbers, in a Ferrari 458 GT2. And we are green for the first time in Tier E of Year 2. The Huayra has a definite advantage in top speed and raw power over the GT3s, so I'm going to cruise off to the lead right off the go. Right off the gate, right off the go. Well, we're going to reach corners soon, and I'm not going to be too good there compared to a GT3 car. The question just becomes, can they even pass me? Do they have the nerve to try and out-corner me? I mean, they probably could if they wanted to. They probably can if they try, but do they try? They referring to literally anybody in the field that isn't, or that is nearby, basically. I'm admittedly, pretty much the only representative of raw power in this championship. Everything else is mostly based around handling. There's little minute differences between cars, but it's nowhere near as night and day as the previous two tiers were. When you're putting a Lotus 211, Nissan GTR, and the Gallardo Superleggera on the same track. Here, the differences in power and handling between most of the cars is pretty subtle. The MC12 has slightly better top speed than the GT3s, but has slightly worse cornering. The The McLaren F1 GTR would be in this tier, although no one's chosen it, and it's the same case for that car. Slightly better top speed, slightly harder to control, and slightly worse cornering. Eric could not find a way past me on the first lap, and I am now going to absolutely scream off into the distance. Meanwhile, Linné is tracking an interesting situation there between Hikari, Thrasher, and Casquette. There's the MC12's top speed at work, carrying Yoshiro up to 4th place, considering they started 8th. The 935 is kind of a mystery to me. I don't really know what its performance is like. I want to say it probably leans towards top speed and power. Certainly with its age, it can't be in this tier for its cornering, so it has to have gotten here from raw power. As you can see, Hyde Hito has just screeched past. Sure looking for another one. Meanwhile, Eric has actually seized the lead away from me, and Cameron Walker is also on the move. He's made his way up to 3rd after starting in 7th place. As Yoshiro has spotted her next victim. However, I won't be such an easy pass for this Maserati. My power is going to cancel out the power advantage this thing has over the other cars. It's in a weird middle ground. It has better handling than me, and better power than the GT3 cars, but it's kind of that awkward middle area. Yeah, it's gonna horsepower its way right past Cam, but it doesn't really have much to contend with me with, or to contend against me with. There we go. I know how to use the English language. Riley has arrived in the points paying positions. She'll be in 8th if she finishes this pass on the GTR. But Hikari not really going quietly here for the Corvette driver. Multiple chicanes later. I don't know if these are like a weird chicane-esque crossover thing, but I think Riley should be able to pull ahead there. Not sure the poor corner through there. Riley must probably smell blood in the water. And she's going to attempt to ship it in there. Doesn't really get a chance though. Nutori with her own mistakes allowed Thrasher to get alongside her. Does he capitalize? I'm going to go ahead and guess no, as he's stuck on the outside of a very long corner. And instead Riley is going to try and follow Nutori through. So that's successful. It is. Nutori gonna ride the lightning and try and get around her fellow Lamborghini driver. And the checkup ahead, because of my my cornering abilities lacking significantly, has kind of denied Nutori that one. Instead, now it's Linné riding the momentum and getting the overtake done on Cam on the main straight. Possibly. Unless Cam has a comeback maneuver. He kept a nose there, so Linné had to, make space for the Audi. And we're gonna go too wide through here again. However, Cam is victorious after one S, so we don't have to do the second one. Meanwhile, it is certainly a little bit of no man's land. Yoshiro Casquette has taken second away from me, but seems not much in any position to try and track the leader down based on the lap times. Eric is simply lighting the track on fire right now, and this is results of these kind of races certainly a little more telling than other tiers because the cars are much more even here than they are in others. And we see Thrasher and Tyler going at it for P8. This is the first time that all 5 of my main group of friends, Cam, Tyler, Taylor, Thrasher, and then myself, have been in the same race, you know, obviously because this is technically Tyler's Challenge Series debut here in G tier. Tori once again going for the lead on the compatriot in the Lamborghini. I exist, so that's gonna throw a wrench in the works for Nitori again. She's probably getting, living out a constant sense of deja vu there at that point. If Shiro's lap time is competitive with Eric's, the only problem is that she's almost 6 seconds behind, and we are on the final lap, which means there's not really much chance of her making that deficit up. Tyler, meanwhile, has decided he's going to try and take 7th away from Blanchard, and I do believe that has been a successful operation. The Thrasher managed to follow her through, no, or him through, no, I just called Tyler a girl. Good job, Riker. Hyde has had a quiet race, but he's managed to sneak his way up into a position where he will score a point. And Travis, I think, may be regretting his choice here. Yeah. Unless he got run into. That's possible. No, looking at the lap times, he is just a little bit slower here. Might be possible that when the AI are... I did not realize that this was looking like this. I am creating the ultimate train, but I have just enough horsepower to resist. As Eric Wojcicki heads down the front straightaway to collect a pretty self-explanatory victory here at the opening round at Mugello. Lots of Italian cars running near the front, so the Tifosi might be kind of happy with this one. Even if we're not at Monza, I don't know if that even applies, but Ferrari wins, Maserati is 2nd, and then we have Cam's Audi taking 3rd, having dethroned me, who ends up being 4th. And then there's even more Italian cars behind me. So Cam really denied the territorial Italians there. And Hyde managed to sneak his way to 8th last minute. I don't really know how that happened. Thrasher with 11th? What happened with Thrasher in those last 2 minutes? Not really much of anything. So we're just gonna move on to the next race. You just got stuck on the outside. There was nothing you could really do, and you got passed by 3 cars in like 6 turns. I was thinking maybe he got run into and missed a corner or something, or nearly spun out and got pushed back forwards. No, he just kept getting passed. He just ran out of speed, I guess. But he did manage a point, which is nonsense because Taylor just passed him after Eric had finished the race. Next we have Classic Monza. Now, weirdly, we start in 1966 Monza and then go to normal Monza, but here we are. We're here at the starting grid for the Classic Monza race. And Hyde's still not catching a break, clearly. We'll see if Travis can redeem himself after his poor showing before, if he can manage to finish well here. Eric not in a bad spot there, 6th place on the grid. That's basically the 2nd row because Monza does weird starting grids, so... I suppose we'll, we'll see what happens. Yoshiro has yet more work to do, but if the first race is an indication, that MC12 has some definite pace. Too much. Travis, not with the best start ever, to say the least. That'll probably check up everybody behind him real good. And I'm gonna just pull right up alongside Eric, but traffic is restricting me in some ways. I'm gonna go too wide with Miyako, but not much will be gained there. I now understand this is a top speed car, because this thing just outran those cars after that terrible start. To what extent? Well, I'm just gonna look and see how much. Oh my god. That thing is out of here! I really didn't know how this thing operated. I didn't really know what it was like. I know that this thing is old, but I didn't know this thing was... It's probably gonna crack 200 down the main straightaway. I almost cracked 200 on that straightaway. Meanwhile, the just moderate gridlock going on back here. Drivers cutting some grass and all and the like. Eric trending downwards, not what he needs for his championship run, but he has no real fears yet, as neither of the other drivers that made the podium with him are doing much better. I figured I'd be progressing faster than this, I'm gonna be honest, considering the top speed advantage, but when everybody is too wide in front of me, I guess there's just not really much I can do. There goes Gina off on a little expedition. She's managed to at least keep the car pointing relatively straight though, but looks like the vehicle has taken some minor damage, possibly. Riley's still clear second place. And gets Travis in the mid part of the lap, but as soon as we get through the old Lesmo corners, this 935 is out of here. Lene going for the podium spot, that's about as easy as it gets on the Nissan driver. Huracan also definitely makes the claim for high top speed, but it doesn't really sacrifice too much handling, making it honestly probably the best GT3 car in the category in this game. Yako's apparently had an escapade with the wall. Game still refusing to inform me of any damage Gina has picked up, but I'm pretty sure she has to have some. Nope, that's not Tyler. That's Eric to her right. And Eric's gonna outdrag that Nissan pretty easily. There it is, and, well, the rear wing is bent, which would normally be a concern, but I don't really know if this game handles that correctly. And she's looking for more damage. And she has certainly found it in the form of Hyde. Also off the track behind her was Yoshiro. And he's gonna attempt to continue the race. I think Cam may have had a similar affair based on how far back he is. Yeah. Gina has just elected to park the car. Do that to get back to the regular camera. Ah yes, that is considerable damage. Has Hyde picked up damage from running into Gina? Body damage. Nothing suspension though, so he's fine. Alright, now let's see this horsepower of yours, Travis. What are you packing down there? There, it literally tops out at 199. That's tease right there. I have set the fastest lap with a more efficient combination of relatively high top speed, but also not, you know, handling from 40 some years ago or more. Yoshiro and high, too wide. It's been a mistake for Eric. He's as we head towards turn 1, he's too wide with Nitori, and he gives space, but he gets kind of surprised by Nitori moving wide, and that is a brutal crash for the Ferrari driver. He's got a little bit of his rubber on the grass. And before he knew it, his car was at a 90-degree angle, and he overcorrected, and that is a wall. And that is your championship lead probably down the drain. And then we saw that scare too wide with that between Kido and Cascat, which surprisingly didn't end in disaster. Now you can see Wiley can just about see Travis on the horizon, but we get to this straight line and there's nothing. Same thing with me, but like the opposite problem. I use my top speed and I get right up to Linne's doorstep, but I just lack the cornering to complete the pass. Eric does not manage to continue the race either. Cam ironically is, despite, well, what certainly, I guess would be my better judgment, considering his damage is really making him go pretty slowly. This has been a, well, it's not exactly a race of attrition, but as far as racing with AI cars is concerned, this is about as close as it gets to a race like that. Not the most DNFs we've had in a race. I think there was literally a race where Muscle Tone 71 scored. The pace car scored. I'm apparently P3. Oh, I am actually P3. I guess I just managed to finally make a move, probably down the front straightaway. Linne did have enough corners to keep with me, finally. Neko's got some body damage, but it's nothing that'll stop her from trying this pass. The Z4 definitely had more top speed than I remember it having just there. Nitori, spectating this conflict, looking to take advantage once it's decided. At least I would have to assume anyway. Yoshiro has not been the factor I had anticipated her to be in this race. I figured top speed for sure on this car would be enough to keep it competitive, but it actually doesn't have the top end I thought it did. It's more of acceleration than top speed or handling. So it's good in short straightaways. This would probably be good at maybe in Imola this thing would be fine, but not here. Those are the wrong cars. It's Taylor and Hyde were fighting for 9th. I am the fastest car on track. By a good margin. I just had to take so long to get through the field starting 10th that I am not viable. I have taken 2nd away from Riley through turn... No, I haven't. Yes, I have. I'm utterly blind, and we're about to lap Cam? My god, buddy, get off of the racetrack. Well, we don't have to wait for him. I think the race will end if he's a lap down, so. This has become an obstacle in my path. This has become an obstacle in Riley's path. It's an obstacle in Linne's path, but it's not going to be one in anybody else's, I don't think. Because Miyako is a decent margin of margin back. Not far enough away from Nitori though. She's not going to be spared from that overtake. Travis is going to use his his resident sleeper horsepower to win. I'm going to take second place from 10th on the grid. Riley's going to survive for the podium. And Ituri got the move done for 5th position on the Z4. Right as she gets up to Cam's R8. Now, will the race end with Cam a lap down? Yeah, it will. Whatever happened to Cam happened early, too, because his best lap time was still in the minute 40s. And it just got worse and worse. I am your points leader, with Travis and Eric in a tie for second in points, just considering they both won a race, and then their other race was not in the points. Lene, 4th in points. Yoshiro only 6th, solely off of her Mugello result and nothing else. Good field spread, considering the fact that all drivers have scored a point, except for Gina. And she might have been on pace to score one herself had she not had that crash halfway through. So now, let's just do that again, but like 50 years later, shall we? Alright, we are on the starting grid for Monza. And Yoshiro is on pole. Travis in a good spot to continue his consecutive string of wins. Assuming that that car is half as good here as it is at the classic layout. Riley also looks set to try and expand her score a little bit. She is like 4th in points right now. Eric is in an okay spot. But in this tier, it is harder to make up positions even at Monza than when compared to other tiers. So it's due to the fact that most of the cars are pretty similar in nature, so top speed difference is much more subtle than in, say, tier D or C. Travis's car also not great off of the line, but once it gets out of first gear, it launches. There's a little more from the middle of the grid, and it's Monza turn 1. Without the kind of human element, it's usually pretty tame. More looking for laps later on in the race to prove to be of any real interest in this race. The first lap's kind of more like a prepare yourself type of lap, whereas, you know, in real life it's actually the most frantic one. That's just kind of the nature of AI drivers that don't usually run into each other. They certainly do, but not often. And between Vittori, Riley, and Travis, this is sort of a battle of extremes. I think the Corvette is better at in low to mid RPMs, but the Lamborghini will have better overall top speed. Also, the Corvette might be marginally better at handling. I think it might be a tiny bit lighter, but do not quote me on that. I don't exactly have the specs on my screen or anything. I really think she sees an opportunity here. She's already smelling blood in the water. But not really there. Eric, after keeping his G4 driver in his mirror. Honestly, Monza in a GT3 car, your goal really shouldn't be to pass. At this point, Eric's goal would probably just be to make sure he doesn't get passed. And the 488's got really good handling in this category, but its top speed leaves a little bit to be desired, as Miyako is attempting to prove right now. Unsuccessfully. Hikari and Cam battling for last. It's always like a 2x2 affair. Thrasher and Tyler seem to be hard to separate in this championship as well. They battled for a moment at Mugello, and they're side by side again just there. And you got a break for a long time in this car. Riley is currently in a Lamborghini sandwich. Here's a Hamburgini sandwich. But it's a very big sandwich. There's quite a bit of space between the meat and the bread. Probably fit a bit of cheese in there. Maybe some mayonnaise or possibly ketchup, depending on what you're eating. If it's a hamburger or a ham sandwich. Sort of psych each other out there as they head down towards the final turn. But again, Riley is just a bit too passive, but Nutori not also is passive, so Riley is going to manage to win that standoff. With the superior top end, though, Nutori will have no issues retaliating and retaking that position. Can Riley be aggressive on the brakes this time? Doesn't really seem like it, no. And Yoshiro is some ways away. I did kind of think to myself, it's better on a modern track, due to the fact that these straightaways, while long, still shorter than they are on the 66 layout, and sure enough, the MC12 is dominant here. I think even if it didn't start on the front row, probably would be pulling away right now anyway. Or certainly fastly approaching the lead. Travis is visibly struggling through every corner, but can just open up the floodgates as soon as he gets free from them. And man, the water definitely does come rushing when he does. This has been the most engaging Monza race so far. However, I have arrived into 7th place in some attempt to spice things up. Let's add a bit of horsepower to the mix, shall we? Moves isn't quite on. Obviously, the yin and yang of Monza, you can't exactly have all these straightaways without having tight corners in there somewhere, so I have to wait through those before I have a chance to do something like mess around and hit 170 and then pansy out before I can make a pass. And then I do that and never make any progress, because I'm bad at chicanes in real life, and apparently my AI has decided to replicate that, unfortunately. Gina is going to produce another not great result. She's certainly not looking on track for points right now. So her luck is not looking fit to turn around. As I'm recording this would technically be early in the morning, and the sunrise is absolutely annihilating my vision right now. It's not been great for your boy. maybe I am part vampire. Maybe I should go visit the Scarlet Sisters in that mansion that doesn't exist. Riley she has the position at the start-finish, but that doesn't matter yet. And Nitori is going to effortlessly get back ahead of the Corvette, which seems to lack top end. I have since claimed Eric's position, looking for my next victim, but just don't have the cornering to contend with the Lamborghini, so... And I apparently don't have the balls either to do so. Riley's gonna have another crack at the Kappa as we head down towards Parabolic once again. Will she ship it in? She brakes marginally later, and Nitori obviously forced to leave and, space for the car. And I think once again she'll have the spot at the line. She just has to win this drag race on the next lap. Although based on where Yoshiro is, that doesn't seem like she'll even get the chance. Being that she's 14 seconds up the road, she'll have finished long before these two ever even get near the last turn. And I think I'm going to probably finish this race in an unfit position to take fifth away from Taylor here. Just don't seem to have the nerve to throw it in due to my cornering ability, which is not there. Or as I keep trying to say, my core cornering, which sounds really wrong and really weird. It's just me getting mildly dyslexic for no apparent reason, despite not being dyslexic in any way, shape, or form, so I don't really know where this is coming from in my brain of mine, which seems to function with varying degrees of success at different times of the day. And McLaren's going to be keeping up with that Huracan in a straight line. Linné really didn't do the Lamborghini justice when compared to its other drivers. She went down positions, whereas Nitori actually also went down one, and Taylor... Okay, never mind, I'm just dumb. So Yoshiro is going to take a pretty uncontested victory at Monza. Travis will come home in second place, and I believe he will be the new points leader following that. I don't think sixth place was enough for me to really defend that position very well. I'm not out of the chase, but I don't think I'm still there. But it does take 1 point away, and Gina will come in last place to remain the only driver with no points. No, it is a tie for the points lead between Yoshiro and Travis, and I am a very close third, Riley a close fourth, and Nitori only 1 point behind that, Eric only 1 point behind Nitori, so, I mean, it's obviously early going. Championship is going to look close. It's not going to be until the end of the next episode before we really know who the contenders are and who the contenders aren't. Meantime, we move on to the long circuit of Black Cat County, which will be possibly a 15-minute long race. Now here on the starting grid, whoa! Are we in Silent Hill? This is a very foggy Black Cat County, and your Shiro's in a great spot to continue her contest at the championship early on. Travis Wild, however, is not. Eric is in a good spot to resurge, if you can keep that position. I'm also in a competitive starting grid spot, and maybe starting third, Gina can finally put some points on the board. And Yoshiro does not get off the line terribly well. Gina will seize second place for the time being from her start, which was very fast. She might even have a run on Eric, but she's kind of beginning to cover me off unsuccessfully. She might have had a shot at Eric until I arrived. If Travis plays his cards right, he can recover himself into a couple of points. Because this track has its straightaways. This is no Highlands, which is where you normally expect to see this kind of fog. But there are still straight line sections here to use. Obviously the front straightaway being the premier one, but otherwise, in the meantime, people could just do that on him and there's nothing he can really do about it. Tyler really did not have the start he was probably looking for. Now here's another one of those aforementioned straightaways, where the 935 is going to be a weapon of mass destruction. This is actually not what I was thinking of, but there is a spot right there where he could be of concern, and instead he's more concerning the barrier than his opponents. Eric is still your leader, Gina is still second place, I am currently third, might be looking to improve that soon, since we have now reached the actual straightaway I was referring to begin with. I thought that was longer. I am just not remembering how this track works, apparently. Well, Travis is not going to produce much from that. Maybe I was just completely wrong, you know? That's always a possibility, that I'm just completely frickin' wrong on what I think a car will do around the track, and in reality Travis is probably doomed from the start here. Riley meets the guardrail, but I mean it's not really any major damage in play there. But she's really flirting with the Armco there, isn't she? This race has been quite an uptrend for the Nissan GTRs, who had a rough go of it in this championship up to this point. Still obviously time for that to change, but it's not changing too fast. And here I moved my seat forward to get the sun on my face, and oh, it starts moving again. How dare you complete your natural patterns, son, and blind me in the right eye? So now, joke's on you, I'm just gonna move the seat back. There we go. Problem solved. Yeah, I could probably use this fog in my area since I couldn't really see the sun as much, and it would be less of an issue. Anyway. Right, the race. Kind of the whole reason you're here, right here. This weird section. Riley trying for a spot against Thrasher. Taylor sends it on her fellow Lamborghini, or no, Lene sends it on Lynn, the fellow Lamborghini driver, but Taylor is going to clap back and maybe stay in 10th. Well, they got a big exit out of that corner, so it's possible that no. It's gonna be a dragger. I think Lene just hit the wall there, actually, and Taylor will manage to retain the position for the moment. Travis would make up time here. Unfortunately, he's so far back, it really doesn't matter at this point. He's already lost so much time to everybody else. I don't think Travis will be able to bring in the consistent results needed to fight for the championship. He'll be like a one-off like winner. He might get another race win later down the road, but he's never going to be consistently finishing well because of the way that his car behaves. As you can see, he's struggling to keep this thing going the right way. Battle for the 10th between Taylor and Tyler. And Thrasher right ahead, so this would be an interesting thing to show them if they really actually cared. The real ones probably don't actually care too much. And we have a DNF. Seems Nitori has made a bit of a mistake. So here's Nitori running like well in the top 10 here. And just that was enough to break her engine. It's mid-engine. How did weird. And that's currently put a big hamper on the cars behind her. She was running like she was running 6th when that happened, and now she's just straight up out of the race. And they got stuck behind her. Move on from that bizarre event. Lamborghini's looking more like Ferraris over here, am I right? Blowing up randomly. As someone who tries to pride herself on always being the inventive innovator that makes durable things, she's probably pretty embarrassed at that one there. Eric is putting on another dominating display, much more so than his first race. Setting up to be a battle between Thrasher and Tyler once again, this time with 8th position at stake rather than like 13th like they were fighting for the last time we saw them together. Or side by side, rather. Or more specifically, side by side, if I can make up my mind on how I want to talk. It would be helpful, I suppose. He's gonna send it. Thrasher finds a wall. Some body damage, but nothing critical. And Thrasher just seems to lack the power necessary to contest that in any way, shape, or form. So that battle really didn't turn into much. It wasn't really much of a battle at all, actually. am certainly having a bit of a recovery run after his last two races have kind of been subpar. Myself versus Yoshiro, the two kind of off Italian brands. Yoshiro could have probably fit into either one of our two cars here. She could easily have been driving the Pagani instead of the Maserati. If anything, was probably more out of character for me to drive the car that's more top speed oriented than handling. As somebody who prefers to be in control of his car and doesn't really care what pace he's making as long as he's making it safely. I don't necessarily think of slow and steady wins the race. It's more of like slow and steady means you're less likely to just spin out and lose all your progress. That's certainly how I set up cars, especially GT3 cars. And as he heads out of the last turn here at this very foggy Black Cat County race, Eric will take his second victory in just 4 rounds of Tier E. Gina going from 0 to hero, scoring herself second place for 12 points. And that will take yet another podium, but still no victory. And then comes the train of cars that came in behind me. So it's an 8, 9, 10 for Tyler, Taylor, and Thrasher. So didn't take that 10th place too far ahead of Hyde. And now, finally heading out of the last turn are Travis and Lene. To conclude matters here in this episode of the Challenge Series. Trying to take a quick look at the standings. I am the points leader. No, I am tied for the points lead with Yoshiro. Eric just 1 point behind us. And it's 27 points apiece for Travis and for Riley. And Nitori is still within 1 brace worth of points at 20 to my 35. So it's kind of seeming like it's going to be a battle between me, Eric, and Yoshiro, barring immense circumstance. Riley could be a dark horse candidate later. She's been consistent, but she hasn't been outstanding, which leaves her in a position where she could go either way. She could trend upwards and suddenly blow the competition away and score like 3 consecutive wins and like 5 podiums in a row. Or she could have a couple of bad starting grid spots and score nothing in the next episode. It's just, you know, it's something to learn later.